beginning of the fifth, and a first of its kind preemptive pardon written by the auto pen in the Biden administration. All this is very concerning, and we can't get to the bottom of it. So, I mean, unfortunately, I'm afraid we're going to need some congressional action to go after what happened under the auto pen. I filed a bill to deal exactly with this because I believe the auto pen was manipulated in ways under the Biden administration that were totally without, President Biden's knowledge, acknowledgement, or even understanding.
And it does come as the Oversight Project did release some new audio recordings from President Biden's interview with his ghostwriter for his upcoming book. It appears that he had fought pretty extensively to make sure those audio recordings didn't get released, but due to some lawsuits, they eventually did. And one of those pardons that he put out right before leaving office was a preemptive pardon for Dr. Anthony Fauci. It seems like there's going to be a lot of legal protections for Dr. Fauci as we kind of continue this conversation. But do you think that the auto pen discussions and the one that the House Oversight Committee has right now could play into maybe, delegitimizing it possibly?
Absolutely, as it should. Ryan, what the hell is a preemptive pardon? I'm going to give you a blanket pardon for crimes that you may commit in the future. I mean, this stands against everything what is called due process. You're going to allow somebody to just go out and we've discovered where you committed crimes. But you know what? We don't even know what those crimes are at this time, but you're good in the future. That's garbage. That's hogwash. And that is not what any of us stand for when we hold our hand up and pledge to protect the Constitution.
And kind of getting back to Dr. Fauci and his relationship with President Trump. He was in his position during the COVID-19 pandemic when President Trump was the president of the United States. They did multiple press conferences together. They had multiple meetings together. And there were people who had pressured President Trump to fire Dr. Fauci. I think the question is, should President Trump have fired Dr. Fauci back when he was president?
Absolutely. I can't tell you the number of United States senators that I talked to during that period of time. I was the CFO and state fire marshal for the state of Florida, and the dialogue was, is Jimmy, the scientists are influencing the process too much, and it was all being led by Fauci. And then what motivations were there because of potential cover-up of where U.S. tax dollars were going to China that could have been the genesis of this whole creation of this virus. So again, I think a lot of interesting questions were brought up today. It's unfortunate there wasn't a single answer provided to all of those questions that are still burning in the minds of so many of us.
Following up on that, was it a mistake for President Trump to not fire Dr. Fauci when he was in office?
I truly wish the president had fired him. I know he had threatened from time to time, but again, this was a first of its kind path that this country had gone down. And I do believe that there were media elements that were exploiting it. I do believe that the Chinese government had culpability of what was taking place. And this is just one of the first cracks at understanding what was going on behind the closed doors, some of the conversations and some of those privileged conversations that we never had simply because of Anthony Fauci's sloppiness. Do we know that this diary existed on our own government servers?
So what happens next year? What are you going to be watching for, and what do we need to watch for, and what further action can be taken here?
Well, contempt of Congress is obviously what we're going to see coming out of Rand Paul. Unfortunately, we're going to probably have some type of congressional change to be able to take this any further, or there'll have to be some type of attack or investigation on the legality or the strength of these preemptive pardons, which I still think there's no way, shape, or form anything like this should exist. A president issued a pardon for a crime that was committed, not for something that could be preemptively for a crime that may happen in the future. I do think it was important to note that a pardon does give you the ability to be exonerated from anything that you're going to bring and disclose forward. Unfortunately, I think for the American public, the toxicity and the crux of those answers would bring riots on the street. And you know what? It still may do that.
Yeah, it's a lot to follow. Congressman Jimmy Patronis from Florida, Republican, thank you so much for your time here on Live Now from Fox, and we'll have you back on in the near future. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. You're doing a great job. Appreciate you.
I always appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir. All right, we are up against the clock for our next commercial break. We'll go ahead and take that. We'll be right back in just 2 minutes, so stay with us.
complexity and the confusion causes people who would be covered not to get care. That's another factor. It's not just what it doesn't cover, it's also the uncertainty causes avoidance, which leads to avoided care. And even that would be covered. Like, that is the thing that really gets me.
Now, the current system that we live under allows all of the corporations who make money off of our healthcare system to spend money to elect people who will then turn around and protect the industry. And they, in effect, manufacture a bipartisan.
Go live, because I do have to do a Halo Campaign Evolved thing. I think the PC is running well now, and I do have a bounty that I need to take care of for Campaign Evolved. The plan to do the entire Halo series did not shake out once the computer issues started. But, you know, whatever. So, if she doesn't go live tonight, I'll go live, and otherwise we'll do that tomorrow. We got Oliver Larkin coming out on Friday. That should be fun. And that will be all for me. Let's send y'all over to Lisa today. Send y'all over to Lisa's Learning. And that will be all for me. Alright, y'all. I like playing along with you. Yeah. One day we'll go through all of them. Okay. I'm out, folks.
It's possible that Warsh's central bank will release, I never say this word out loud. Is it Kraken or Kraken? Man, I honestly don't know how to pronounce it because I never actually say it. I read it. Someone will know in the chat. Kraken or Kraken? People are saying it's Kraken in the chat. That's what people are saying. Wikipedia says it is Kraken. Okay, there you go. Some Fed watchers say it's possible that Warsh's central bank will release the Kraken with a shock rate hike this week. More likely, they write, policymakers will hold off, reluctant to risk disrupting financial markets that aren't expecting a rate increase yet. Policymakers may want to see more economic data. Something else to look at. The price of oil briefly blasted past $100 a barrel last week on intensifying fighting. It's since settled down on hopes the U.S. and Iran can find some way to reduce tensions, but just in the last day, it's gone up a bunch. In the last day, we've had Jordan firing missiles. We've had Iran firing missiles at U.S. forces in Jordan. We've had the U.S. and Saudi Arabia attacking Iran-backed militias in Iraq. And today we have this news that a drone attack has hit a gas loading facility in Egypt, and that a U.S.-owned gas storage tanker has been hit and was set on fire. And 2 tankers were on fire in Egypt. Whew, wow. So we'll have to see. We're going to keep an eye. The Fed rates decision is in 28 minutes. We're going to let you know as soon as that comes out. And let me see if I can get you any more updates right now on this situation in Egypt. That is a breaking situation. Oh, I did see something about the situation in Egypt. Something else I want to mention. So, Kepler, which is they do marine intelligence, Kepler. They say that there was an explosion at this Damietta LNG terminal, liquefied natural gas terminal in Egypt. They said it damaged the Energos Winter floating storage tanker, which is U.S. owned. And they also say it damaged the gas-logged Salem LNG tanker, which we heard elsewhere. Both vessels have been moved offshore, they say, as authorities assess the situation. the gas-logged Salem ship had been due to begin service as a floating storage unit on August 1st. They say the market is looking at what the potential impact will be on near-term gas supply and terminal operations. So who did this in Egypt? Was this some Iranian proxy in Egypt that did this? Who is launching a drone or drones at these tankers at a port in Egypt? And might this also be a sign that things could spread to other countries? Let's see, let me take some comments here. Old Hickory says, but I thought carry a big stick worked. Ty Thompson says, my guess, Houthis, no sources, just opinion. The Houthis, I mean, they're a little away from.
There's the Republican a little bit earlier who said, what is a preemptive pardon? He hasn't even been accused or convicted of a crime just yet. And then, of course, Fauci denied claims of obstruction in an investigation of Congress not too long ago. He's testified before Congress on a number of different occasions. This one, however, was the one, and I believe the first one that he did since getting that preemptive pardon, and ultimately decided over and over again to take the Fifth Amendment and choose not to answer questions from senators. So we got that QR code at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. What questions do you have related to Fauci potentially being held in contempt of Congress? Now we've got Bob Chesney, the head coach of UCLA, now at the podium here. Let's go ahead and take him live and listen in and see if there's any questions related to NIL that are going to be asked here.
Does an absolutely phenomenal job. I also want to make sure that I thank our Martin Jarman, our athletic director, who's in the back here with us today, and then also Chancellor Frank for believing in me. Obviously, a guy from the East Coast coming from a lower level. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions about that in a second, but at the same point in time, the belief that they have in me and the belief that I share with them in UCLA is significant. There's no better place I'd rather be at this moment in time, and I strongly believe in the power of what UCLA is. Not to go through all the details and bore you with statistics, but like most teams out there, we have quite a few new guys that joined our team. We have 63 new ones. So we have 45 transfers and a bunch of other first-year freshmen. And I really do love the response they've had to exactly what we're trying to instill at this moment in time. They come to work every single day. They have a strong desire to be really good at football, and not only be good at football, but be good at life. And I think that's really important to me, is that we understand it's not one or the other. Like, to have success on that football field, you better have success in what you do on a day-to-day basis and hold yourself to an extremely high standard. We'll have 3 players up here with us at a later point in time, but you'll get a chance to meet them. Nico Iamaleava, who is a phenomenal quarterback, and we're looking for him to continue leading this team the right way. Cole Martin, who's a great safety for us, an unbelievable leader, and when you meet him and his energy and what he brings to the table, you have a pretty quick understanding of what this program really wants to look like on a day-to-day basis. And then Sammy Amasigo, who's a transfer from Oklahoma, plays linebacker for us. You get a chance to meet those 3 as well. Great young men that I think represent our university very, very well. When I got to my initial press conference, a big part of it was we talked about having to re-engage this community, how to re-engage these high school coaches, how to make sure that we opened up to our alumni, how to make sure that we allowed the press, the local press, into practices, and every one of the things along the way that we talked about doing in that press conference up to this point in time, we have lived out. And I'd also like to say that as within the administration here at UCLA, just the commitment that they said they would have to this program, they've also lived out. And when you put those 2 things together, one of the words and things that I think lead to the most amount of success is this word alignment. And when you have that within your athletic department, from the chancellor all the way down, you have a chance to be really good. And I believe that that is what is going to happen here in our very near future. But to do that and to do what you said you were going to do also develops trust and builds trust. And that's really important that we're able to do that, in the short period of time we've been together. We'll talk a lot about it right now as you want to ask some questions, but everything here is ultimately conceptual. We'll refer to the past, and we'll look back on exactly what we were and how we've done it in other places. But at the same point in time, just understand that I understand, the gravity of exactly where we're at and just how good these coaches are, just how good these players are, just how tough these venues are to play in. I get all that, right? And for me, it's got to be about the foundational elements that we bring to this program that I think travel regardless of the level you're at, all right? I understand, what we're walking into, and I know that not only me, but our players also look forward to having an opportunity to represent UCLA on this national stage within the best conference in America. So that, I'll open up for questions.
Coach, on your left side, first row.
Hey, Coach. Nick Hamilton, Nightcast Media. Welcome to the Big Ten.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, as you continue to establish a culture at UCLA, what are some of the things that you did to build a rapport with Nico and be able to build that bond and that chemistry where it's a trickle-down effect throughout the entire locker room?
Yeah, well, it started with retaining Nico, obviously, when we got here. And I think for Nico, he could speak on, on his own behalf, but, just to add a little color to it, he did not want to go anywhere. This is where he wanted to be. This is where he wanted to play. His younger brother's on the team. He doesn't live very far away. So the ability for his family to see him play as well, I think was really important for him. So it was just a matter of making sure he understood that we had a plan. That was it, right? That was the most important thing we could do to make sure he stuck around, and he did. So then after that, it becomes, all right, now let's start taking the next step for him personally, and I just love the growth he's had as a leader. I think when you look at last year, and I've been on record saying this, when your head coach, your coordinator, everybody leaves that program in week 3, after he only got there in the second half of the summer. So you spent 3 or 4 weeks with them through camp, and then all of a sudden there's a major change. That's a challenge. And it's hard to lead in those moments when you don't really even know everybody. So to watch him just grow and run with this and flourish at this moment as the leader, he was unanimously voted the leader of our football team when we did voted our leadership council. He was at the top by a large margin. And that just speaks to the way he carries himself on a day-to-day basis. And we're going to need him to be really, really good on Saturdays as well.
Coach, on your right side, towards the back.
Hey, Coach.
I see that.
24/7 Sports. Good to see you again. You've talked a lot about how you feel like you can have success quickly at UCLA. What does success look like in year 1 for you?
Yeah, Connor, I'm not really interested in putting, artificial limits on ourselves. Or making promises on outcomes that have to be earned. I know what we will do is attack every single day with urgency and relentlessness and do the work. And that's the most important thing that we can do is go about it on a day-to-day basis. We're not going to win on Saturdays because of only what we do on those Saturdays. And our players understand that. So to me, success looks like a united, disciplined group that continues to grow every moment that they have. I want to lead the nation in development, right? That's what I want for this team. I want to lead the nation in them being able to be developed not only on the field, but also off the field. And that, to me, is something that I think will pay dividends moving forward. But at the same point in time, there's a lot of room for growth there. And I think that our guys understand that. Our coaches are continuing to teach and educate and put our guys in the best position. I think our strength staff did a phenomenal job. Every step of the way, we've done, reached some, milestones and done a really good job with it. From the portal class being the number 11th ranked portal class in the country, and we had started the day we walked in, school had already started and the portal opened because we're on the quarter system. So within a week and a half's time, 45 new guys showed up on that campus. So that speaks volumes of just what UCLA is and what UCLA can be. But, I don't have a record that we're looking at. I'm just understand we're not going to put any limits on ourselves. And at the same point in time, we understand these outcomes have to be earned, and that's got to happen on a day-to-day basis.
Coach, on your left side here, second row.
Hey, Bob, Colin Wilson with the Action Network. A handful of teams over the last couple of years have had problems traveling multiple time zones. I know UCLA has 3 separate weeks in conference play where they've got to travel multiple time zones. You had travel to Texas State and Oregon last year. Has that helped you maybe structure things a little bit different for these long travel weeks that you have?
Yeah, so it's interesting because now my mind is a little bit clouded. But I had a chance to go out and visit with the Rams for a couple days and talking to Sean McVay about it. No matter where they play, they land at 6 o'clock at night. They go through their evening, they get up the next day on whatever time zone they're in, and then they play the game. And I think they're like 90% wins on these cross-country trips. I think for me, I recently did it, went from California back to Virginia, and I was paying close attention, to what I would feel like the next day. And I think that one day where you have a chance to get in and settle, the day before, and then just, you wake up the next day a little tired, and then you go to bed a little early the next day and you wake up and you feel a whole lot better. I think that I got to juggle that just a little bit more and figure out what the best plan is for us. But we did have experience in it. It was a 2-day trip always. I'm just starting to rethink it a little bit, and we got to do a little bit more research before we finally pull the plug on exactly what we're going to do.
On your left side, Coach, fifth row.
Hey Coach, Jacob Nguyen from the Daily Bruin, good to see you. My question for you is obviously coming from James Madison, you have a lot of continuity, your 2 top coordinators was a number of transfers. How do you hope to take what made you successful last year and apply it to this first year while also helping build a new identity and culture in your first year at Westwood?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think that the continuity part is really reassuring to me and sets you at ease just a little bit better when you know the offense that's being run, how those players are being communicated with. Then on the same thing on the defensive side, the same thing on the special team side. You also know the same thing in the strength and conditioning side. So I think all those elements, are really reassuring to me to know who we are and to know that these guys all speak our same exact language. That's important. But again, it goes back to foundational things. The offense may not look exactly the same and the defense may not either, but the foundational ways of a program being built, being connected, being disciplined, and every single day seeking growth is what we need to be really, really good at, and our guys understand that.
On your left side, Coach, third row. Hey, Coach Chesney, Liam Blutman here, host of the Brandon Walker College Football Show at Barstool Sports. You spoke to player development. I'm just wondering, a player or two that's really standing out to you that people aren't really discussing.
Yeah, I think, to me, there's a lot of guys on our team that I think are doing a really good job. I think that one guy that just pops off the screen a little bit every day is Brian Rowe, who transferred in from South Carolina. His development every day is really, really, just surpassing what we actually thought maybe he was as a football player. His strength in the weight room is phenomenal, but then his understanding of the playbook continues to grow, and he makes some pretty elite plays, and that's really important, that he does that. And then we talked a little bit earlier, me and you, and I think, Sayer West has done a great job. He came over from JMU with us, and he's just doing a really good job on the other side of the ball. We haven't been live, for some time yet, but I think that to watch their progressions, and their growth, for sure, they're developing at a high level right now.
Coach Chesney, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Once again, I just kindly remind you to please keep your voices to a minimum when our coaches are speaking, as this is live on BTN for our transcribers as well.
You're just listening to head coach Bob Chesney of UCLA. Somebody we should probably point out who is a
Mun koodilla on nyt 45 päivää ilmaiseksi